Greetings one and all, and welcome to another Dark Rider pony analysis. I am the Nightmare Rider, Major Mine, reminding you, as always, that even the cheeseburger can be deconstructed to its original source. The Equestria games have finally arrived, and the end result has had yet another division among the analysis community. Many have expressed their annoyance that the episode was focused on Spike rather than the full games. I'm not going to say that everyone is wrong for feeling underwhelmed. After all, we've been building up the story arc ever since the end of Season 3 and all through Season 4, an event that is the pony version of the Olympics. I think most of us, including myself, were expecting something on a larger scale involving the games themselves, rather than what ultimately felt like a side story within the games. However, I do not think that this should be grounds to dismiss the episode entirely. Everything that does happen should, in this humble mind player's opinion, stand on its own merits. I've made no secret of how amazing Dave Polsky's episodes have been this season. He has not only written my favourite episode of the season, Rarity Takes Manhattan, but he has also managed to do some brilliantly thought out character episodes like Twilight Time. As such, regardless of what could have been, what we do get is another brilliant episode for Spike, as well as other characters for added bonus. Dave Polsky is still using quite a bit of continuity, but only to the extent that it's building on existing character development, rather than anything that happens in the games. As a perfect example of this, Rainbow Dash is the first to show a big development milestone. She gives a motivational speech to all the Ponyville athletes involved in the games that is surprisingly grounded in maturity. Considering the competition and the skill levels of her teammates, she does not expect to win gold at the relay race. But as long as she and all the other athletes put in an awesome effort to do their absolute best, she doesn't mind if they win or not. It's moments like this that make Rainbow Dash my favourite pony in the show. Everything she has done since Wonderbolt's Academy, Sleepless in Ponyville and Flight to the Finish has culminated in giving every pony a realistic expectation of success while motivating them all at the same time. When Spike enters the story, this trend continues, as he is hailed as a local hero by the ponies of the Crystal Empire for his deeds in helping the main six restore the Crystal Heart. This could have easily gone down the route of Spike being absorbed in his own ego, but just as the opener fixed some issues I had with Rainbow Falls, Dave Polsky has instead fixed an issue with Power Ponies in that it plays to Spike's anxiety of being useful to his friends, this time in a more realistic scenario. When it comes to Spike's stage fright, considering the sheer scale and pressure on this one performance at a national event, it makes a lot of sense that he would freeze up so suddenly, especially when all those people watching you see you as a figure to look up to and admire. This sets up one of Spike's biggest shortcomings, his high personal standards in performing tasks asked of him, proving his worth to other ponies. And here we have one point in the episode that has caused the strongest opinions on the whole thing. Spike making a mess of the Cloudsdale national anthem. The scene has been described as cringeworthy, with many criticising Dave Polsky for taking it to this level. This is another case where I can understand how it would affect the entertainment value of this episode. I myself found a lot of situations in popular media where characters humiliate themselves in public to be cringeworthy. When I was a kid, I was always hide behind the sofa at the ending to the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment from Fantasia, since I found it too awkward for Mickey to be caught in the mess made in front of the sorcerer. But in this situation, I didn't mind it too much because I could see what the purpose was in the bigger picture of the episode's plot. After this failure, it makes sense that it would solidify his fears of inadequacy, overriding any sense of pride he may have had from being seen as a heroic figure before, especially because of how he usually holds himself to such a high standard. How Twilight reacts to Spike's emotion in this episode leaves with some mixed feelings as well. She clearly wants to respect Spike's feelings, but she did come off as somewhat harsh and a little ignorant of the weight of Spike's conflict. This leads into the third significant complaint that has been put against this episode, being that there was little precautionary measures taken for the emergency when the stray ice arrow hit in the cloud. I consider world building in character focused episodes to be more of a bonus rather than something necessary, but in this case it does help to justify why Spike was the one to achieve an act of heroics rather than one of the princesses. The magic disabling spell was used on all unicorns to prevent cheating, and it was said that there wasn't time to disable it at all. It is implied this is only done while the games are on, since there wouldn't be any need for cheating spells during the opening ceremony. Even if the princesses did begin to react, Spike's actions were done quicker than the time it would take to cast a spell. While I will admit that the princesses not being able to do anything was a little contrived, the end result of Spike having a moment of badass made it acceptable in my opinion. But the crowning gem of this episode was the moral. This is a similar moral to Dare and Don't, and it's one that both kids and adults can learn from. There are going to be times in our lives when we have high expectations of ourselves. We hold an individual value or skill so high that any failure robs us of our self-worth. This can be very detrimental to our self-esteem and our future successes, since we may not put in as much effort if we already think we aren't good enough to begin with. What Spike learns here is that letting go of past failures and learning from them is the only way to improve. Spike's fear of letting every pony down prevented him from performing what he is good at, but once he is reminded what his best skills are, he can refocus and demonstrate these skills much better. Overall, while this episode wasn't the best conclusion to one of Friendship is Magic's first ongoing story arcs, with separate writers still handling individual episodes that are still focused on immediate character development, there wasn't much room to show a full scale of the games themselves. So as a climax, it was lackluster. But as a standalone episode, it was still one of Season 4's best. It fixed an issue of previous episodes without making it overly contrived, developed Spike's self-esteem based on his successes, and presented a moral that really stands out in how applicable it is. I give Equestria Games a final grade of a straight A. Until the next review, this is the Nightmare Rider, Major Mind, riding out.